Here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to talk about Sony digital imaging. And that's because, as many of you already know, on November 19th, we're going to be getting some new hardware. The expectation is that there will be two new cameras, specifically the A1 Mark II. I love my A1, easily the best camera ever made, absolutely the best hybrid camera ever made. And then the other camera is likely, or many rumors speculate, will be the A7 IV, an update to a camera that is arguably one of Sony's most popular, versatile pieces of DI equipment ever made. But for me, again, it's all about the A1 Mark II. And let's talk about what those rumors are, as well as other rumors. That is the premise of this video. So what most leaks point to at this juncture, per Sony Alpha Rumors, a site that I've used for many, many years. Andre knows that. He's featured my channel many times over the last decade plus, almost nearly 15 years, is that we're likely going to see the A1 essentially with the same 50 megapixel sensor, a new processor, an AI chip. It'll all be housed inside of the A9 Mark III body. This all, at least to me, makes a lot of sense. Compact flash, we will be seeing an upgrade with the Type A slot moving from 3.0 to 4.0, which essentially is a double in the speed. It'll finally bring us neck and neck with Type B performance, which is, well, something we should have had from day one. So that makes a lot of sense. In addition to that, I'm hopeful that we're going to get a new battery type, but that's not part of the rumor. So maybe it's not happening, but this would be the camera, in my opinion, to show off that new battery type. But of course, the fact that Sony likely is using the A9 III body pretty much rules that out, because it would need its own body. So if the current rumors are correct that the A Mark II will assume the A9's literal existing frame, then we are not going to get a new battery. Now, beyond that, the A7 V, I think, would be an obvious release at this event, but it's not confirmed. I think everyone knows the A1 II is coming. People have been wondering, what the price point will be. Andre speculated, and I think with good reasoning, that it could potentially be $1,000 more, because Sony is likely not discontinuing the A1. But I'm going to give a different, at least, impression that I have of what Sony will do. I believe they will lower the price of the A1, believe it or not, and that will allow them not to necessarily raise the price of the A1 Mark II, but it gives them a little bit more breathing room to be fair. I would say a little bit more fair with all of us when it comes to pricing for performance. Now, I could be completely wrong. Again, I do think Andre's logic lines up, but if that logic were to continue, it means potentially we would, have a never-ending continuous price increase every generation. I don't think that's where we're headed. Of course, we're going to go through, a cyclical process that will ebb and flow. And Sony has been raising prices now for several years, essentially since they became the number one DI company in the world, which many did not think they would ever be able to achieve. So it's understandable they're cashing in. But again, I think it's more realistic that the price on this camera goes down. It's still $6,500 right now. If it dropped down to $6,000, then maybe the A1 Mark II is only $7,000. It doesn't need to be $7,500 to create that $1,000 gap between these two cameras. So I could be completely wrong, but I think it's a little bit more reasonable, because Sony still has to take into account competition, where Canon presently is at. And I think that the moment they continue to push pricing into another realm, despite the fact that they have the best technology in the business, the competition is now closer than they've ever been. And that means that you do have to still be a little bit cognizant of what costs will do to your sales. So I would not be surprised if they, again, lower the price of the A1 and don't raise the starting price of the A1 Mark II, or do so in a more nominal phase, not to blow all of us away. But then again, it is possible they go up $1,000, because this camera is not aimed at doing mass quantity sales to consumers, right? This is a pro-grade camera. But the reason I still maintain that I don't think the price is going to keep going up is because if we're still getting the same sensor, I don't know, at least based on what I've mentioned here, that's not enough to get me to buy it personally, because this is still more camera than I'll ever need at present as someone who doesn't shoot for a living, especially. But even if I did, I don't think that I would need more. What would get my attention is maybe if we saw significantly improved low light performance. I know the AI chip is going to make a big difference in the keeper capability of what is already a stellar autofocus system. And of course, the autofocus will also be improved on its own, independently of what the AI will bring to the table. So there's a lot to get excited about. Of course, with that new compact flash Type A 4.0 support, we should have higher throughput, which in theory could mean even more capability from the A1 Mark II. But at least the leaks thus far don't point to that. So that's another thing holding me back and saying, hey, maybe in the third generation, we're going to get something that will blow this camera away rather than just build upon what it's already done incredibly well, which it appears is all the A1 Mark II is going to do at present. I'm assuming we're going to see everything that most of us wish the A1 had. A little bit more modern, of course, a better rear LCD display. All the niceties it really should have had at launch, but I'm still not complaining. And when people get into firmware, this is still the best camera in my opinion, firmware aside. So call me biased on this, but I'm not sponsored by Sony. I never have been. They've never paid me for a review in my life, nor do I plan on going down that road. I've never gone on a trip with Sony. Those of you that follow my channel know that. So again, I'm excited about this camera, but at present, I would need to see a lot more than what I've mentioned to make me want to invest new money in a successor to what is already, in my opinion, still one of the best. And I mean, even if we go from 30 frames a second to 40 or 50, I don't need it. So I'm sure there are some of you out there. I want to hear from all of you where you stand on this. But let's move on to that A7 IV. Now, personally, I think this has the most potential because the A1, again, is so expensive and aimed at such a niche of people that really are looking for the best of everything in a single body. And even most pros aren't necessarily looking for that. I think the A9 Mark III really satisfies that. The A7 V, though, would be that answer to everyone else wanting just an amazing camera. But I struggle with necessarily seeing that needs to be in existence anymore. And I say that because Sony has invested so much in their creator line of cameras, the ZV lineup. And I'm not saying that the A7 IV and the ZV worlds merge, but I do think Sony's vision for the last 5 years has been to get users that like the A7 IV to hopefully migrate to more of a creator-centric lineup of cameras that are a little bit more dumbed down, easier to use, that just work. And I could be totally wrong, but we'll see. It doesn't mean I think the A7 is being discontinued, but we don't have confirmation on this. A lot of people are talking about the A7S III, of course, and getting a successor finally. I think that's going to happen. It's likely not this announcement. Just as I'm waiting for my FX3's successor. Will I need that? No. Is that coming at this announcement? Likely not. Of course, the other thing that's pretty much confirmed is the new 28-70 f2.0 lens. That's also exciting, but I'm really hoping for something that substantially upgrades the 24-105 personally. There also have been some rumors about this guy right here, the 100-400 G Master. I mean, this is one of the, I would say, oldest yet one of the best performing lenses all around that Sony put in this lineup. That's my personal opinion. There's some people that love this lens, some people that detest it. I also have the 200-600 G, and I mean, granted, since I got injured and had surgery, this is not a lens I have been able to use, but I certainly would never be able to use the 200-600. Just reiterating why the 100-400 G Master with an adapter is really just this. Probably, if I'm able to get to a point to use this again, I'll be a very happy camper. But right now, for those of you that follow the channel, thin and light is what I'm all about because of the surgery that I went through, the injury that I sustained. So again, if they do come out with a new version of this, I think it's more than warranted. This lens has been out for a really long time, so we are due, but it's still really, really good. But no question, the overall performance of it can be drastically improved. Sony's camera technology, their drive motors, all of these things have had major upgrades since this was launched, which is really at the early onset of Sony trying to take on the world with mirrorless cameras. I mean, it was the beginning of G Master, so that tells you enough. Other stuff that I personally would like to see us get, and I've talked about this many times over, I absolutely love the RX1. This is the first gen, and my original copy actually got destroyed when my house got destroyed by Hurricane Matthew. And this was something I quickly repurchased because it is just that unique. It was my first full frame camera from Sony, and I actually bought it from Amazon at launch. It was amazing. Still, in my opinion, is amazing. There are times when I still take it out, and now with my physical condition, this is really one of the best choices that I can take out because I simply don't have a full frame camera that's this small. But of course, this does not have an EVF. This has terrible battery life, no ability to shoot 4K video. It's just incredibly limited. Granted, it has an amazing Zeiss 35mm lens that is fixed to the camera, and really just, I think, reminds all of us of a simpler time when Sony was just trying to beat everyone. And I would love to see that return to Sony's DI business. And if this were to come out now in a modern form with 4K on board, making it also smart, giving it a EVF. I do have the attachable EVF, I forget what the name of it, LF, whatever it is, one that they launched that was so expensive for this. It was like another $700. I do have that. Got it at a Sony store closing when all the Sony stores were going out of business. It was just a great buy, great compliment to what is already an amazing camera. So let's hope we finally get an update to the RX1. I mean, they gave us a Gen 2. It still cut too many corners for me personally. You got the sensor from the A7R2, which was great, but no 4K video. And again, I know a lot of people don't care, but I would love to see a hybrid form of this. It really would be my go everywhere camera. Again, I doubt Sony's going to do it because I don't know how many of you are like me and desire something like that. Most people think their phone is suitable these days to do exactly what I would like to do with an RX1, Gen 3. Let's hope it happens. Because as good as the Mark II was, it did, introduce all the niceties of contrast and phase detection autofocus that we got from the A7R2, which I do still own, believe it or not. The R2 is still around. That, on the other hand, it's just still incredibly old. That's a 2015 sensor autofocus system, so it would be nice almost 10 years later. Now, it will be 10 years later to get something modern. And then the last camera I'm going to talk about is still the best of its kind, and that's the last RX10 that Sony made. Their bridge-style point-and-shoot camera, 1-inch sensor, the ability to take this thing all the way to 600 millimeters, 1200 if you are really looking for that mega zoom. It's just what this can do is just still unmatched. And even on my honeymoon, I saw people shooting with this. It's what my wife was shooting with through the whole honeymoon. And, it's just one of those type of cameras that has so much capability, so much utility, a little redundant there, I know, but I can't overstate it. It's just that good, but it is obviously showing its age. This is not close to being recent anymore. So Sony, if you're listening, I know you don't like to make point-and-shoot cameras anymore, but I assure you, this would still be incredibly popular. And if Sony would, again, modernize the RX10, that is another camera that I could easily see being my go-to camera for everything because, again, I can't deal with a lot of weight anymore. My arms and hands just can't handle it. Even right now, the only way that I'm holding this is that my elbow is resting on the table. But if they were to revamp this and modernize it, I could easily see this being my camera for just about everything. So food for thought. And, even if they priced it at $2,000, I don't think they'd have a problem selling it. So that's pretty much my roundup. Again, realistically, I think we'll see the A12 and the A7 V, and I expect the A7 V is going to look, very much like many of us expect. It'll have, there are no leaked specs, but if I had to guess, we're going to have a lot of the niceties that we have from the A7R5. Really, it's better to look at something like the A7C2, frankly, in terms of feature set, because we're not going to enter into the R realm. But I think that, having AI on board, having the flip-out display from the A7R5, I think having the new body, of course, from the A9 III. I think all of those things are likely to happen. But who knows what corners Sony will decide to cut, because we also don't know what other models they may have in the pipeline coming in the future that could be new offerings, new entry points. And that's about the only way Sony can really charge more, in my opinion. Just doing new generations of existing hardware like the A1 certainly is a pathway to charging more, but not if they're not going to discontinue older models that are still incredibly relevant, if not some of the best on the market, like the A1. I mean, until the A1 II comes out, nothing is really better than the A1 still to this day, in my opinion. So that says a lot about a camera from 2021 and why its resale value is still excellent. And I have no problem recommending it to anyone out there who has the funds. If they are pro or just getting into things, it's a little bit much of a camera for someone just getting started, but it is the type of camera that could easily be with you for a decade, as long as you keep it going, and Sony continues to service anything you need, which they will. So that pretty much rounds it out. Again, really excited for November 19th. If I had more info, I wouldn't be able to share it, but I don't. I have what all of you have access to, and I have my around 15 years of covering Sony DI to base this off of, and have a reference point in terms of the way Sony really does things. And most of the people that were at Sony when I first started covering their products are still there. So I don't anticipate a lot of change here. So just excited, looking forward to it, and also really interested what all of you think is coming, what you're looking for. Again, for me, the A1 Mark II would have to bring a lot more. I would need a new sensor, frankly, to even begin to contemplate $1,000 more than that $6,500 price point. And I think most of you would as well. But again, like I said, improved low light performance, a new battery type, and much of what we already think is coming is a good starting point. But we're not going to get a lot of things I pointed out. But tell me what you think. Tell me what you're looking for, hoping for. Again, I'm excited about another generation of the FX3. I don't know how much more can be built on top of it, but I don't manufacture the cameras. I review them. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. Hit that like button. And as usual, please feel free to subscribe, and please stay safe. Later.